Jadon Sancho is in the news for Manchester United, but unfortunately for him, it's not because he has made a sublime return to form. It's not because he has finally become the decisive, attacking threat that he was expected to be upon his return to England. Unfortunately for Sancho, this latest turn of events between himself and his manager is what's dominating the news, just as he was once dominating Germany. But his homecoming hasn't gone as expected, and when you look at the events of the previous season, perhaps those can educate us on what's happening in the present. Neither Sancho nor Ten Hag have done anything with malicious intent, but unfortunately when it comes to football in the social media age, tribalism and trolling will only make this worse. Hey guys, I'm Adrian and welcome to the channel. It's been a while, I know. If you missed it, I made a post in the community tab as well as a couple of updates on Twitter to let you guys know what's going on in my personal life and why I haven't been uploading. But as you can see, I'm not at home, and given the nature of what's going on, this video topic struck a chord with me. There's a strong tie to mental health and performance, and as I am dealing with a loss in the family, it's been really difficult to focus on work, decision paralysis, a lack of focus, lethargy, and all things I don't really associate with myself under normal circumstances, but all from increased anxiety lately. We're also a month away from our wedding, so the timing is tough. This is something I deal with regularly while running a YouTube channel where your success and financial well-being, another source of anxiety that everyone can relate to, are directly tied to your performance, and your performance is judged by the public. Similar in some ways to what footballers go through, but at a micro level. And so I'm excited to tell you about BetterHelp, today's sponsor. You don't need a clinical diagnosis to feel the benefits that therapy can provide. I'm a huge advocate of everyone talking through their fears and problems with a professional. And that's where BetterHelp comes in, as it's their mission to make therapy affordable and accessible, because finding a good therapist near you can be difficult and intimidating. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. And what's even better is that changing therapists is simple through the platform. Anyone who has gone to therapy has probably changed therapists a few times, as you have to find one that matches your needs. Through BetterHelp, changing therapists doesn't cost a penny and connects you to the therapist that's best suited for your needs. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's actually a link in my description for you. It's betterhelp.com/RabonaTV. Clicking that link helps support this channel, of course, but it also gets you 10% off of your first month of BetterHelp. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp by going to www.betterhelp.com/RabonaTV, connect with a therapist, and see if it helps you. Thanks again, BetterHelp, for supporting Rabona TV. What Jadon Sancho did was pretty revolutionary. Heading to Germany at such a young age after doing well for Watford's academy and then for Manchester City's academy, he was a bit of a trailblazer, wasn't he? I mean, Jude followed his path, that's for sure, and a few other English talents have also found themselves being developed in Germany as well. Well, Musiala, he walked the path until completion, electing to represent Germany as well. But back to Jadon. He was indeed a trailblazer in my opinion, as we hadn't seen a young English player join the development academy of a foreign club and then find success to the level that he did with Borussia Dortmund. There were times where Sancho was simply unplayable, especially in that 2019-20 season with Dortmund. Just when you thought the 2018-19 season would be tough for the 19-year-old to top, he only went and did it. 20 goals and 20 assists from 44 appearances for the English attacker. At the beginning of the 2020-21 season, his final one with Dortmund, he started a little bit slowly by his own standards, but found himself again. All in all, another incredible season for Jadon, where he had both a finish of his own and a knack for setting up his teammates, two things Manchester United were dying for. But were there any signs of a lack of professionalism or anything that would point to that? Well, Michael Zorc, the former chief of Borussia Dortmund, once said of Sancho when he was 19 years old, quote, "Jadon is still in the process of growing up and perfect professional behavior, so he needs guidelines and help, and we'll give him that. You have no choice. You have to maintain team discipline. You have to act as a club at some point." Now, what was he referring to? Sancho twice being dropped during the 2019-20 season, in which he was dropped twice from Dortmund's starting 11 due to being consistently late for training and once sleeping through a team meeting. Now, most people would have just shrugged that off if that was the only issue, but it wasn't, unfortunately for him. Jesse Lingard also spoke in an interview in 2020 about how he and a few teammates played Call of Duty Warzone during the lockdown and onward. I mean, who didn't? I certainly did. But one of the players mentioned that was not a teammate of his was Jadon Sancho. So this would be 2020, and by September of 2020, as football was returning for the 2020-21 season, Sancho was starting to annoy Zorc in Dortmund, especially when you couple this with Sancho previously breaking lockdown rules to get a haircut in June of 2020. With these stories coming out, coupled with him arriving late from international break back to Dortmund, Sancho finally spoke out in the fall of 2020, and he acknowledged that he had some things to work on, saying, quote, "Sometimes I'm late to training, and it's things like this that I need to work on because I have a sleep problem. Little things like that where I need to be a little more professional and put things right. But I'm working on it, and the club's helping me, and the team is helping me. Slowly but surely, as I get older, I feel like I'm learning new things. People do say that I'm very mature for my age. I guess leaving home and learning things for myself has helped with that." When United signed Sancho in July of 2021 for 85 million euros, after a very long pursuit from the Red Devils, he arrived with a wave of excitement. Sure, some Dortmund fans were already trying to rain on that parade by saying that the version of Sancho that they sold was already showing signs of decline from the one they had before. I mean, things that are hard to believe when you're talking about a young player like that. A loss of form seems far more believable than a regression, right? Now, Sancho didn't exactly arrive at a peaceful moment in United's history. Ollie was the manager, United were a bit all over the place results-wise, and he struggled to adapt. It took him until November 28th for him to score his first Premier League goal, which came against Chelsea. 5 days prior, he scored in the Champions League against Villarreal, which was just days after Ollie was sacked. It felt like he was on his way to finding form, right? But Sancho's form was temporary, as he wouldn't have another patch of good fortune until February and early March, before he went cold again and ended up missing the final month of the season. By the way, this is the Rangnick era we're talking about. And with Ten Hag arriving, like the supporters in other parts of the United squad, surely Sancho will have felt like this was a breath of fresh air, a serious manager who had proven his tactical chops while managing Ajax, and who would set the dressing room straight and hopefully get United back to competing for titles. After 1 year, with one trophy, you could argue that he did just that, or at least he was on his way to doing so. Now, Sancho did indeed play in the League Cup conquest from the 2022-23 season, as he came on as a sub in both the semi-finals and the final. However, that came after an extended absence. Why? It was announced that Sancho would be taking a break from football in early November of 2022. Perhaps it was down to falling out of favor and being dropped from the starting 11 in Ten Hag's side. Perhaps it was the England snub, or both of those things mixed together. Or was it something Ten Hag wasn't seeing on the training pitch? Perhaps it was all of those things together, right? You know, more than one thing can be true. While the club was relatively cryptic with what was going on, Ten Hag had this to say, quote, "We want to bring him back as quickly as possible, but I can't give a prognosis of when that will be. Sometimes there are circumstances with fitness and mood. We got a drop of quality level, and sometimes you don't know why or what is causing it. That is what we are doing now to try to get him back there. It is a combination of physically and mentally." So a combination of the two. And in that time, Sancho went away to the Netherlands to train separately from his United teammates, as well as going dark on social media. In all, his final United match was on October 22nd, and he didn't make his return until February 8th versus Leeds, marking the occasion with a lovely goal. I remember talking about it at the time on Twitter, I believe, and my word, did it ever feel good to see him return to the pitch again as he made his real return against Nottingham prior to that in the Cup, and to score a goal and see him smiling. Despite the 3-month break, Sancho would still make 41 appearances that season, scoring 7 goals and grabbing 3 assists. Hell, he ended the season strong with an assist against Chelsea and a goal against Fulham. So with the way things ended last season, there was plenty of belief that Sancho would finally arrive at United, that he would finally reach somewhere closer to his Borussia Dortmund form. And even looking at United's preseason, Sancho looked fit and sharp. In fact, he was named as one of the winners of United's preseason by various publications and journalists, and in general, there was much more optimism than doubt surrounding Sancho at this time and his place in the team for the upcoming season. When Ten Hag was asked about Sancho during their preseason tour of America, he himself said, quote, In this moment, he is in a very good vibe. He decides how he is, how his mood and vibe is. He has a lot of energy. We have all seen that from the moment he came back. He wants to enjoy football and be successful. This is me speculating, so put up the speculation alert, but perhaps I'm reading into this too much with the benefit of hindsight. Also a hindsight merchant alert. Throw that up as well. But it seems as if Ten Hag's words, they seem deliberate. This whole aspect of he decides how he is, how his mood and vibe is, seems like a direct hint that Ten Hag was slightly mistrustful of Sancho, as if he believes that Sancho chooses whether he's in a good mood or not, whether he is capable of playing well or not, as if he can just turn it on or turn it off. Anyway, speculation and hindsight alert ended. Stop! Sancho didn't make it into the starting 11 of any Man United matches to start the season. One could argue that if he was in good enough form, he would have played. But context is important as well. Rashford owns the left, Bruno owns the middle, and given Ten Hag likes to play with inverted wingers, a right-footed Sancho on the right side doesn't really fit the bill there. That's why Antony plays. So his performances would have to be extraordinary to change the mind of Ten Hag to allow him to play down the right. Ten Hag being a guy who is known to be quite extraordinarily stubborn with his choices. Sancho did come on as a sub in his first 3 matches of the Premier League season, but was dropped from the squad entirely for United's trip to the Emirates, of which they lost 3-1. After the match, when asked about McTominay and Sancho's absence, Ten Hag had this to say, quote, "Jadon, on his performance in training, we didn't select him. You have to reach a level every day at Manchester United, and you have to make choices in the front line. For this game, he wasn't selected." And as you know, Sancho posted an immediate rebuttal to his social media account saying, quote, "Please don't believe everything you read. I will not allow people saying things that is completely untrue. I have conducted myself in training very well this week. I believe there are other reasons for this matter that I won't go into. I've been a scapegoat for a long time, which isn't fair. All I want to do is play football with a smile on my face and contribute to my team. I respect all decisions that are made by the coaching staff. I play with fantastic players and am grateful to do so, which I know every week is a challenge. I will continue to fight for this badge no matter what." Later, it was announced or speculated that United will discipline him for this statement. With these situations, and with every video I make, I try to look at every bit of information spanning multiple sources, look at the complete timeline of events, and then try to understand what's going on. I'm not going to diagnose anything, that's not for me to do, but I can say that if I was Sancho, I would feel pretty shitty and low on confidence after what's happened since joining Manchester United. The toxicity, not just from rival supporters, but from your own, is at incredibly high levels. You have to deal with the mental struggle of not being able to reach the heights you were once hitting. And the world is there to judge you and harass you every step of the way, ensuring that you never, ever forget the poor form that you're in. Now, unfortunately for Sancho and his well-publicized history from Borussia Dortmund, it makes it a lot easier for everyone in the public, on the outside looking in, to believe that this really is a training issue and nothing more than that. He's immediately on the back foot in this case. And let me be clear, what Ten Hag said wasn't disparaging, nor was it a hurtful attack on Sancho, who he is as a player or who he is as a person. In a vacuum, these comments are everyday comments that managers make, but people these days like to ignore the context that surrounds everything. As the manager and the guy who agreed to allow Sancho to take time from football last season for his mental health, he was intimately familiar with Sancho's situation. Ten Hag did know better than most that these words would have been embarrassing for Sancho and would immediately bring unwanted scrutiny and attacks from trolls online, which leads me to believe that perhaps he could have been far more delicate for someone who he knows is or has been suffering from mental health issues. Longtime watchers of the channel will know that mental health is something that I like to focus on when analyzing players, because they aren't just players, they're humans. And mental health isn't something that you just treat once and your issues are gone. It's not an infection, it's an ongoing battle, something that you have to exercise and take care of, not just treat once and move on like it's an infection and antibiotics can fix it. I know how mental health struggles can affect performance in your job. I know how it has affected my own work in the past. I delivered some pretty shit videos now and then. I'm well aware of that. Jack Lang of The Athletic actually wrote about this, drawing from his own life and saying, quote, "In the in-between times, I have been distracted, on edge, often present in body but not in spirit. The work I have produced is not anyone's idea of my best, and knowing this is its own kind of torture." Two things are worth saying here. The first is that mental health conditions can, to the untrained eye, look a lot like laziness. The second is that the very worst thing that could have happened in my professional life during that period would have been some kind of public rebuke from my boss. I've linked to his article below in case you want to read it for yourself, which I highly recommend because, I don't think I could say it any better than Jack did there. Especially when it comes to the point about how the mental health not only affects your work, the quality of your work, but also knowing that you aren't producing at the levels you are capable of is indeed its own kind of torture. And there's another dimension to it when you work in an industry, whether that be journalism or sport or what have you, where your work is critiqued and scrutinized by the public. The reality is that most people have to put up with potentially getting warned or chewed out by their boss. No one has to hear it. They don't have to put up with people online calling them every name under the sun, or in Sancho's case, people on the street as well. Nobody likes the feeling of failing, and everyone is well aware of when they are doing so. So you can imagine having the public on you. That's tough. I know that football is a tough business, and managers are paid to make tough decisions. They're the first to go when things aren't working, so they have to be cutthroat. However, I think that there was an opportunity for Ten Hag to be a bit better here with his handling of the situation. Sancho isn't happy with how things have gone at United. He'll likely be the first to admit that. And so when he's in this delicate state, the last thing he needed was for his manager to say something like this publicly. The words weren't harsh from Ten Hag by any means, but the discourse and the attention that it will bring to Sancho, a guy in a delicate point of his career, surely will be. Anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on the situation. Ultimately, Ten Hag wasn't malicious, but he could have done better. And I don't buy into this notion that Sancho doesn't care about football and is lazy, because when you look at the full timeline and the events that have happened in the past, like I said in the intro, they can educate you on what's happening in the present. And I hope this doesn't get ugly for him. Anyways, I thank you guys for your patience as I sort of navigate this, personal time. The video should start rolling in at a more frequent rate, which isn't that hard to do considering I wasn't uploading for the last couple of weeks, but there you go. Regardless, thank you so much for watching, guys, and please take care of yourselves. Ciao.